privatization of something that we improve is education. Whenever we find that an educational system works within a small group, I was involved in a group in a school called Hagar, which was a charter school. But when I saw it work, it took commitment from parents, it took commitment from legislators, it took commitment from every single player in the process. In that part, we talk about what? Democracy. We're asking for input from each particular party that becomes a player within that. So we know that democracy has the capacity to be expansive. And when we've seen that it's been expansive, it's because that we've taken the steps in terms of seeing that it's expansive. Robert Wright said in a op-ed in February of 2008, as he described the eventual economic collapse, that there were four elements that happened that caused this collapse that we want to talk about. It's a process of democracy. He said for the last 35 years, real wages for the average worker have remained stagnant for the last 35 years. One of these. Many others have talked about this, but I'm just mentioning Robert Wright because he worked in the Clinton administration and had something to do with labor and knew a lot about what's going on. He also said that within what has happened over the last 35 years, that one, that the number of women in the workforce with children has increased by 35%, from 35% to 70%. One. Second, that the average worker, American worker, worked 250 hours more a year than the average European worker. And four, that the only way in which they were to maintain or keep up was to leverage their homes or extend their credit beyond their ability to pay was the only reason they were there. But he said one of the solutions in this article, I think this article is February 8th, this article was February 8th in the New York Times in 2008. He said one of the solutions was one, to increase the tax benefits of working people, to increase the allowance for them and tax breaks, and two, to support the organization of unions. To support the organization. Because he knew something else about the unionization when you have support in the unionization of the workforce. Not only do they become better in establishing and struggling for their own particular specific needs, individually and collectively, in that process, but they also become better citizens. They become better participants in every aspect of citizenry. That's what democracy is about, becoming a part of that. Now, I've been working on a film in Detroit for the last few years. And Detroit, as we know Detroit is would be considered the birthplace of the city. It's one of the major industrial feats of the 20th century happened in Detroit. But also, Detroit is also the place for what we would refer to as this deindustrialization that has happened in this country. Detroit is the center for that. Very interesting. In Jeremy Rifkin's book, The End of Work, he talked about having a particular chapter on black labor. And he said, it's very prophetic, very profound statement. He said that it was not the Emancipation Proclamation that freed black people from the land. It was the cotton picking machine. The cotton picking machine. Believe me, it may be funny, but the cotton picking machine was invented in 1944. In 1944, 100% of the cotton picked in this country was picked by hand. Within 25 years, 100% of the cotton was picked by machine. What happened? Those workers, those field hands, those tenant farmers, those sharecroppers. But they did remove from the land. Where did they come? Pittsburgh, Detroit, Chicago, and they got jobs. Low-skilled jobs. Low-skilled jobs. But it's the jobs that paid them a decent living wage. They became members of the, the UAW. They became members of other unions, so they would begin to have a foothold in quote-unquote the American dream. Well, those jobs began to become more outsourced. They began outsourced in other places in the world, South America and other places in the world. You present disenfranchised workers at that particular time, and citizens at that time, and they're leaving powerless. They become fact-based. There's no real civic engagement. They become forgotten within the whole process of governance now, which eventually, as we know, led to some extent, in part, to the revolt in 1967. So we look at this whole process of deindustrialization, and we talk about that. I was talking to someone today, and they were talking about how we need to build an industrial manufacturing capacity, and building a manufacturing capacity takes time. We can't talk about manufacturing and building this capacity in the same way that we have been in the past. It's been a 30-year process where we talk about this extraordinary growth in the system here of the golden years, what they call the golden years of capitalism, 1945 and 1975, 30 years in that sense. We saw the end of World War II, we saw the rebuilding of Europe, the rebuilding of Japan, we saw the expansion of the highways passed by Eisenhower, we saw the great expansion which gave breath also to the civil rights movement, because you can't create a movement without bread on the table. So it gave bread to the civil rights movement. So we saw this. So what are we looking at? This is important for us to think about right now. What are we looking at? If indeed, within that 30 years that I talked about, and Robert Wright talks about the last 35 years, which brings us, ironically, up to about 2010, the last 35 years where we see this staggering, what are we looking at? What does that mean in terms of development? What does that mean in our capacity? As we've used those 30 years to now be, in some sense, absorbed in the system of consumption. And I'm saying there's a lot on the table. There's a lot of great stuff on our table today. There's a lot of stuff when we talk about what we want to do and what we need to do. What does that look like now? We can't reinvent that moment. That 30 years is unique in economic history in this country, because the previous years before that, what did we have? We had the Depression. The war brings us out of depression. We have 30 years of the golden years of capitalism, and then we've had this constant movement down. This constant movement down. Those are things that we have to think about. Understanding this history, understanding this amazing moment that we're in, an amazing challenge that we're in. So what does that mean? What are the kind of relationships that we are going to create? What are the kind of economic relationships that we're going to create within our communities? What are those relationships? If indeed this farce of globalization has simply been that, is it simply exported jobs away from us? It's in some sense created a consumer economy for us. What do we do in the wake of that to reverse and have more control of our own lives, both individually, in terms of our community and collective? These are real questions, in a sense. Real questions. They're questions that we're going to have to face in the light of the fact of the diminishing capacity of our climate, of our planet, to maintain what we had before. Someone once said, in order if the United States uses 30%